Hey everyone, I'm going to go enhance my brightness. Here we go. I had it down so low I couldn't see anyone. Nice to see all of you here. I haven't been up here for the longest time. So it is really good to see everybody there. Kind of popping over here. Jeanette in Vancouver, Moke from Florida. Monica, hi there. Liz, nice to see you. We have Audrey and Melvia from Rochester, New York. So lovely to see all of you. We've had a bit of a roller coaster of weather here in Ireland. Right now, pouring rain outside. Last week, gorgeous. Next week, it is apparently going to be in the mid-20s. So we've kind of given up on weather predictions over here. It's going to be what it will be. Bring a raincoat, bring a woolly jumper, cardigan, bring an umbrella, and you might want t-shirts and shorts just stocked away just in case. Pretty unpredictable. So but right now, raining. Bleh. Yeah, not so fun. But fortunately, next week, I know there might be a couple of you on here. I'm away teaching for a few days next week at a brand new spot to me. It's the Fairy Tales and Castles, or maybe that's the other way. No, Fairy Tales and Flowers retreat, and they'll be coming down for a few spots. And I'm going to be meeting everyone in Ballyseedy Castle in Kerry. And I've never been there before, but it looks gorgeous. So I am looking forward to that, and keep my fingers crossed that the weather is nice for it. Kathy, rain makes the flowers grow. Yes, yes, but if it's raining too much, you don't get to enjoy the flowers because it's wet outside. Liz, you've just left the burn and you got you got soaked. I thought for a second you were saying you left the burn shawl, but I'm assuming you mean the burn in the west of Ireland, the actual place burn. Um, Jenny, it's a good knitting day. This is true. This is true. It is a good knitting day. And I have got a lot of knits that I need to finish. I'm kind of at the final stages of several where I just need to kind of get them over the line, get the patterns done and finish them off. But it's fun. Can't wait to share them with you. But I have a couple of samples and patterns to share with you today. If any of you are already in our Spring Seasons Club, you'll have gotten the email and the notification to let you know that our Spring Seasons patterns, the Houseman Mitt and the Houseman Call, designed by Bristol Ivy, have just been released. And I've got them here with me, and they're gorgeous. They're really, really interesting patterns. So I actually have a hard time keeping it the right way around, because of course it's two color brioche, which means that both sides look really good. So this is our cowl. Can kind of pull it across like this, where it joins in the front and it goes all the way around like so. I will describe how it's put together first of all, but it's in super soft cowgirl blues, merino DK. So very squishy, very soft, and very drapey. And here are the Houseman mitts. I particularly love the thumb. Actually, let me put these on. So the thumb has got this really, really interesting increased detail where you've got big increases in the middle for a decorative effect, and then some smaller ones out here as well. And there's decreases worked at the same time to create this really nice slanting line. So I think I really, really enjoy these mitts. I think if I was um, I actually think that the first part of the mitts, at least the hand up to here, is, believe it or not, fairly straightforward brioche knitting. It's because if you've done brioche, there's a couple of different layers is the way I think of it. You start off first of all where the first step is brioche with one color in rows. And with those, each row is the same because you've got a brioche knit, which is a knitting the stitch and the yarn over that's wrapped around it together. So that's a brioche knit. And then the one in between, you slip it and do a yarn over as you slip it. So it's called a slip-on yarn over. So that's all you're doing, and you just do the same thing on the other side, but it's the other way around. So the stitches that were the slip-on yarn overs become the brioche knits. Well, this particular one here is the Melandro scarf, and it's a good example of that one color brioche where you've just got these stitches here where your brioche knits on the front, but when you flip it around on the other side, these ones are sticking out on the other side, so to speak. So that's like the most basic type of brioche. And this is the Melandros. And if you're brand new to brioche, never touched it before, there's all of the techniques in this are shown in our free brioche course. The pattern you will need to buy separately, but all of the videos, or if you just want to take a look at the brioche without following through this, you can see all of those in our brioche basics teachable course. So it's a good place to get started with it. So that's the first most basic one, where it's one color flat back and forth in rows. And I think that two color in the round becomes a little bit easier than that almost, because when you go on the round, you've got two colors, it's color coded. So these ones, the dominant ones, the main color are they're going to be brioche knit. So on those rounds, when you're doing that main color, you'll do a brioche knit for the main color. And then the one that's in the contrast color, you do a slip-on yarn over. And then when you come around to the next round, these ones here, you'll do a brioche purl, and the ones that are in the main color, you'll do a slip-on yarn over. So it's much harder to get it wrong, because one will always be brioche knit and the other color will be brioche purl. So hence the color coding. And from my mind, two color brioche done flat back and forth in rows is probably almost the most complicated, because you work each row twice, once with each color, and then you turn it around and you do each row twice. So it's not so much that it's difficult, but it requires a little bit of attention to detail, thinking about what you're doing and being able to read your knitting a bit more. But this one, very straightforward, because you'll always be working one kind of stitch with one color. And if you look down here, Kathy, you love the Cowburn Blues. It's a good yarn. It is. It's a lovely yarn. And what we've paired together is there's one semi-solid color that we've used for the main one, and the second one is um, a variegated color. So I'm going to take these off and I'll turn them around. And this is the cool thing about brioche, is on the other side, it's the opposite. The dominant color is now what had been the contrast color on the other side. So it does mean that you've basically got, if you're careful, you've almost got two colors that you can do. So with this, after you go up this far and you've worked all those increases, you take your thumb out. This part is the bit that takes a bit more attention, because this is your cuff. This is where you're working flat all the way around, back and forth in rows for your two colors, and you are incorporating one stitch from the cuff as you go along. So it's like at the end of every, well, in this case, if you're going along here, it should be the end of this right side row, start of this one, depending on whether you're doing the right or the wrong side, and then mirrored on the other side for the cuff. So that to me is the only part that is a little bit tricky. First part is quite a relaxing, very pleasant knit. So if you are brand new to brioche and you reach up here and everything is going well and you have a hard time with this cuff, you could actually even just keep this quite simple and keep the other brioche going up. Or you could knit this top section flat and you could seam it on afterwards. So depending on where you're coming at it with, you could keep it quite simple. You can do something in between where you still do that flat but sew it on afterwards, or you can take it up to the next level and do the joining as you're going around. So is there any of you out here who've gotten the pattern, have taken a look at it and have decided, what level you're going to take it at, or what looks fun to you, or what kind of scares you a little bit about it? I'd be very curious to see. And if you haven't joined the spring seasons, we've put the digital version up again. So we'll have the link in the description down there. You'll get the two patterns. We're going to have a Zoom launch tomorrow afternoon with Bristol Ivy, where she'll talk through the process and how she designed them, and you can ask any questions, and you get video workshops for all of them, stepping through each part of the process as well. So this is the second one, and I'm going to see if I can pull it side. I'm going to pull this part up here. So this is where you start. It starts with the provisional cast on, and then this first section is the same, like this section here. Where is it? This one here comes afterwards. So you're just knitting this strip up all the way along, and most of it is just plain brioche in two colors worked flat. There are rows here and another one up further, so here and here, where you've got one big increase and several decreases. So basically lace rows, increases and decreases in a row, but you work that all the way around over to here. So that is designed to fit all the way around your neck. And then when you reach this last section down here, let me see, this last section down here, you're going to do something similar to what you did on the hands because you're working this part down. So it's slight variation in the pattern that you've been doing. You undo that provisional cast on down here and then you join. So you knit your, sorry, I'm turning the side the wrong way around. As you're knitting down along here, you'll be joining down here at the start and the end of every right side row so that those stitches will get joined all the way down. And then at the very end, you're just going to pick up stitches around the edge and just do a two color edging all the way across here. So I think this to me would be kind of the next stage. I would start with this, with the mitts first of all, possibly with or without this. Once you've got that and you want to move on to working the two colors flat, then working this section works really well. If you don't want to deal with the joining on the end, then you can also just seam that afterwards. So that's a nice extra, but it's not absolutely essential. And it is almost reversible as well. So this is what the inside looks like, which I think looks really beautiful as well. And if you want to do it the other way around, you can also flip the colors around. So you might opt to perhaps make the variegated color the main color on this side and the other one the background color. So depending on which your preference is, which color you like more, you can kind of play around with it. So these are the ones that Bristol did. I haven't quite finished these off. When I was doing it, I picked one of the other colors and I have not blocked these. All of the edges are kind of sitting in here, but this is the seasonal color. And you can see my version where I've got the decreases here, and this needs to be blocked so you can actually properly see the mitts on the top. So this one, the background color hasn't got quite as much contrast, so it's a little bit more subtle, the contrast between the two colors, which may be your jam, or you might like more contrast, in which case something like the subtle, because there's much higher contrast between the two. I made a very small cowl. So the cowl is tiny, just enough so that I was able to actually do it, all of the steps in it. But you can see as well with it how before blocking, it's quite squished up. But with blocking, this is all going to open out and really show off that brioche. But it does need a little bit of blocking so that it's going to open up. But I'm really fond of brioche because to me, the stitches look very, very dramatic, but all you're doing is a single increase and a single decrease on each side. And it happens like every 8 rows or something like that. So it's not a lot of work for a very dramatic stitch pattern, in my opinion. If you haven't done brioche before, don't let it intimidate you. Just start at the point where you are and work on the skills that you need to work on. So if you've never done it, take a look at working back and forth in rows, because it's going to really make it very obvious how the stitch patterns go together, basically how it works. So like, let me know, have any of you done brioche before, and what kind of problems have you encountered, or what kind of things would you like to get from a brioche class? Because it is lovely to look at, but it does take a little bit to kind of to get a grip on. So now that I've shown you the patterns and shown you kind of what you're looking at, remember these are both a merino DK yarn. So if you've gotten the digital version, I think that our Vivacious DK would be a really nice match. So I've got a whole bunch of our Vivacious DK colors here to kind of take a look at different color matches that would work. And I think that these two, they would make a gorgeous combination. So these ones are our Tweed Imps, which it's a very subtle underplay color that is just gorgeous. It's got grays and purples, little bits of pink. And then this one is Blush, I think is the name of it. Yeah. And so the two of those would really make a very good combo. The other one I was looking at here would be either of these. You've got I want to get the names right, Deep Aqua, and I think that's Pebble Beach. So Deep Aqua and Pebble Beach, another lovely combo. Or this is always a perpetual favorite for me. We have this one is Burnished. So Burnished and Pebble Beach. because just grays and mustards I really like together. And if you're newer to brioche, having something with a bit of contrast makes it much easier to see which is which, so they're really going to jump out at you. Kathy, you love brioche. Thanks for the class and help. You learned on the scarf pattern in the teachable class. Oh, that's really great to know. And I do, you see what I mean about when you're working brioche flat, it allows you to learn the pattern of brioche. So as you're building the other skills, you can build on that as you're going through. Kathy, or hang on, where am I? I've got Elizabeth. You said the tricky bits for you are round changes and fixing mistakes in rows below. Oh my gosh, yes. And that's actually one of the lovely things about the patterns that Bristol has put in here is she has detailed exactly what you do when you're going between color changes. So when you are going between one round and the next round, you'll finish one round on a slip one yarn over, and the next round starts with a slip one yarn over. It is a little bit easier with two colors because it allows you to slip I mean, the way brioche is brioche Bristol is detailed it is when she finishes the slip one yarn over, she doesn't do the yarn over, she slips the stitch, drops the yarn in the front so it's waiting there for you, and then picks up the next one to start. And that means when you reach the end of the round, you then lift the original color over and do a knit to and do the brioche knit. It's a really tidy way of doing it, but rather than just glossing over it and pretending it doesn't exist, it's detailed directly in the pattern. Same with when you're doing it in one color. She's got one where there's just a few rounds in one color and just describes the fact that you will have a double yarn over between one end and the other, and just acknowledging that that's the fact. Like the other things, I've put a couple of videos in this class as well where there was a few places where I had things happen to me, and rather than glossing over it, I stopped and I'm like, hey, this happened, let me show you how to fix it. The usual ones being, if you've got markers and you've got yarn overs, very often the yarn over will slip to the wrong side of the marker, so just being able to spot that and how you can move it over. Other one would be where as you're going around, particularly change if you've got something like magic loop and you're going from one side of it to the other, where you might forget to do a yarn over, and how you can spot that it's missing and lifting it up so that you can correct it as you're going along. And obviously, if you spot one further down, dropping that down and picking it up is always a bit of a challenge. But there is a detail in our basic brioche class on how to do that with a stitch marker, a big stitch holder where you can use it like a giant safety pin. Kathy, you've done brioche before. You did the scarf, and the two-color cowl was very straightforward, and you wanted to learn more. So excellent. This is a very good next step because there's a lot of extra little bits put in, but I think that the combination of the videos and the details from the patterns should make it a really an enjoyable way of learning new stitches. You would love to learn how to fix mistakes, but not the current row easy mistakes, but drop down sections of multiple rows with the cable as done on the cowl. I do actually have a video on the basics and on my website showing dropping one down several rows and how you can actually fix up those loops as you're going up. So if you go onto Stone Stitches, you should be able to find fixing that brioche mistake. It is trickier because you have to hold all those loops so that they don't come out, which is the key to it, so that you can then pick up that missed yarn over down further. Hey, Bet from British Columbia, nice to see you. And Melvia, you love brioche except for drop stitches. I'm with you. I'm with you. If you can spot them soon, it's very easy when you can see it, but it's often a couple of rows down when it becomes a lot trickier and requires a little bit of surgery. Deb, you've knitted brioche. You did a cowl in two hand dyes yarns that were so close in color that picking the wrong yarn was far too easy. But the mistakes looked interesting and intentional. I love that. And that's the whole thing with brioche, is that everything you do, it kind of looks interesting. Once you kind of keep the stitch counts correct, even if you go askew, it just makes such really interesting patterns. But yet high contrast, if you are new to two-color brioche or new to brioche, high contrast yarns will be your friend because it's going to be much more obvious which is which. It'll also let you know which row you worked last, because you can see, oh, I see the yellow strand yarn over is over, so I know that was the last row I worked. This is for flat, so I go to be using the other color. So it color codes you. California Cottage Designs. It looks beautiful. You've only done one color brioche for the squishiness, but you still want to do two color. Absolutely. Jump in. This is a good way to learn two color. Starting with mitts, taking it as far as you can. If the cuff is getting tricky, you can omit that. And then I think that learning flat brioche with the cowl is really, really nice. And again, you can opt to join it, or you can opt to seam it. So there's kind of like, there's the uh, quite advanced techniques where we're joining stuff in together, but there are options along the way where if that is just taking it too far and you just want to learn the brioche, then you just seam in those sections. We've got, oh, thank you. Hannah's just dropped in the tutorial there for fixing mistakes a few rows down. So thank you. So that one should hopefully help you. Deborah, and yes, you've got lots of thanks there from Deborah and from Deirdre, sorry, and Melvia. So those are the new patterns, and I was telling you the Melandro scarf here, explaining to you how what it is, where you find it, and the fact that it's the brioche one. And I actually pulled up some of the other brioche patterns that I've got up. Some of them have got workshops, some of them are just patterns. These are the furrow mitts. I did these I make sure I'm saying the right names. Yes, it is the furrow mitts. These are in Nua Sport, and they're ones that when I was teaching a brioche class years ago, they were the ones I was doing. So it's in the round. It starts with one color brioche, then it changes to a second color. Then you've got what's known as syncopation, where basically all you're doing is you're swapping the dominant color over. And we've got some interesting increases again for the thumb again. So these ones are a lot of the same techniques. There's a couple of extra ones in. So if you do the ones for if you get the spring seasons and you want to experiment a little bit more in a lighter weight yarn, the furrow mitts might be an option. Two colors, flat back and forth. Again, this is just a pattern. This is falling leaves. So this is a sideways pattern. I done it for a book a few years ago. Again, it's a Nua Sport. And it's one section that's repeated a few times over. So you've got your increases and decreases, and then straightforward brioche increases and decreases to kind of create this wave effect. And the whole thing is done side to side. So it's one really long stretch of knitting that you can wear as a scarf, but it's all done. So the rows are really, really long, but there's not that many rows. But it's, again, this one is one that there's no video for it. So you'll need to look up the techniques. But if you have done brioche before and you'd kind of like to just experiment a little bit further, this is an option. And this is the last brioche pattern that I want to share today. And this also has a workshop for it, and it was also designed as a class. So this is Vines and Veil, and it was many years ago. I did it actually for a retreat we had in Cork. So it starts at the tip here, and it's got big increases and decreases, and then starts working across here in the bottom where you've got just one small section of pattern at the bottom, and that keeps repeating all the way along. But as you increase more, there's more and more brioche. And then this is the final bind off across the bottom where you have the same pattern worked the whole way across. So this one also Nua Sport, done at a looser gauge. And it's two colors worked flat with lots of increases and decreases and bits and pieces like that. So a lot of the same techniques, but just all rolled into a shawl rather than into so a slightly bigger project. Will I show you how to add lifelines? I haven't put lifelines in the videos, but we do have just general videos on putting lifelines in. I would actually suggest with the lifelines using a slightly thicker yarn, because one of the things that can be a little hard with brioche with lifelines is when you pick them up, you're going to also be looking at the yarn overs. So when you're counting brioche, you don't ever count the yarn overs as a stitch, but obviously if you've got a lifeline, you need to make sure that you pull them up and you keep all of the stitches and the yarn overs as they're going. So one of the things as you're counting stitches, if you say, oh, after work 4 stitches in brioche, but of course what you'll see on your needle is you'll see one stitch that looks like a purl, you'll see the next one that looks like a knit with the yarn over it, but that's just a single stitch. So you have to ignore those yarn overs when you're working in brioche because they're part of the slip-one yarn over stitch. But the standard lifeline should work. The only thing that is challenging with brioche is basically lifting up those stitches afterwards and putting them onto a needle as if you need to, because the brioche has a tendency of kind of dipping down a little bit is probably the best way of saying it. So it does require a little bit more care, but it's very, very helpful if you're going onto a new section. So for instance, if you were doing this particular pattern and there's, I think it's 16 row repeats, and if you reach the end of the 16 rows, you're like, yes, I know where it is, it's finished, I'm at the end of 16 rows, then popping a lifeline in along there will mean that if you run into problems going along, you always know exactly where your save point when you come back. So generally, yeah, with something new like this, making it at the end of every repeat pattern, or maybe even every 8 rows, if you're finding that you're kind of coming into problems further along, will make it much more straightforward. Can I show where to get the solid brioche scarf again? Yeah, absolutely. It's up at the top. It's Melandros is the name of that, and I think Hannah's probably going to drop it in. So it's Malandros is the name of the solid one, and it is a good. If you've never done it before, this is a really good place to start, because of the fact that you're just doing it in back and forth in rows, and you've only got a single color. There are increases and decreases along here, but the idea being that if you establish a stretch that is just plain brioche first, you get used to it, and then you can start working into the increases and decreases. There's also been a few different things introduced in this one as well. I've introduced an Italian cast on, which looks like ribbing or brioche and is super stretchy, so very, very handy for the start of it. And you finish it off with a tubular bind off, which is going to do the same thing. So it's a sewn bind off, looks like knits and pearls. So with brioche, because brioche stretches so much, you want to make sure that whatever cast on you use and whatever bind off you use, if you want the rest of it to be able to stretch, that they're just as stretchy. On the edge of this, it was a cable cast on, done a little looser, but you can see it isn't as stretchy as the rest of the brioche, but it's actually deliberate here because of the fact that you don't want the end of that to splay out. So it's actually maintaining a little bit of the shape at the bottom. So this was quite deliberate, but still done loosely enough that you can get a little bit of stretch into brioche. But yeah, I love the feel and the effect of brioche, and the fact that the effect is it's just so dramatic that, like, that's one make 5 increase, and look what it creates from that. It's very, very cool, right? So yeah, I think I'm looking through. I think I've probably given you, hopefully, a little bit of an overview of brioche, all the different ways you can kind of jump into it. If you want to, like, jump straight in with 2-color brioche, then the seasons is great. If you've never done it before and you just want to take a small step, then the brioche basics can be a nice start with the Melandros. If you've done it before and you know what you're doing and you just want some brioche patterns, then a couple of the patterns might be your entry point. But you'll find all the links in the side here, and you'll be able to find them in the section in the description. We'll give you a link for our Spring Seasons Digital 2025. Anyone who is in our club, we will see you tomorrow for the Zoom live with Bristol Ivy, which should be a lot of fun. She's always really enjoyable to listen to. And I'm just looking down here. I should say as well that I'm going to be back again on May the 8th, because the dangle, which I'm wearing here, the dangle cardigan and the dangle sweater, which is behind me, the knit along for those clue one will come out on May the 7th. And May 8th, we'll have YouTube live 4:30 again, where we're going to do a kickoff. There's still plenty of time to jump in because you just need to buy the pattern. You'll join in. You'll get access to the teachable classes. Then you can either shop your stash or you can have a look in our shop for some of the kits because you'll still have time to. There's still a couple of weeks to be able to get hold of it. So plenty of time to be able to jump in. So I will see you in 2 weeks. And if you happen to be in the retreat next week, I'll see you next week. So have a great weekend, everyone. And thank you for joining me. Bye.